Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation.
How would you explain the difference between wisdom, knowledge, and understanding? The author here in Proverbs 1 through 3 is giving it a really good try, and also is showing us with some compassion that this is a pattern that is established well in just the condition of being human. If we can remember all the way back at the beginning of Genesis, when humanity struggled to follow the very basic instruction of staying away from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and only eating from the tree of life. In Proverbs 1 through 3 here, there is an exploration of what proper wisdom and proper knowledge is. We're told at the beginning that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and that fools despise wisdom and instruction. And then he goes into talking about listening to your mother and your father. This is something that is so broken in our culture, and I think obviously it was still broken. It was broken then. It's kind of always been broken. It's part of our human nature to think that we're going to progress, that we're going to be better than our moms and dads. And I think now it's much more entrenched in this idea that we have to put away the backwards ideas of our grandparents and our parents. And it's only in a certain segment of our population now, and I would be part of it, who is trying to reclaim the wisdom of our ancestors, who compares what we're seeing today in science, which I think we could say here is just pure knowledge, the seeking of knowledge for knowledge's sake, or for the sake of glorifying humanity. We see this disconnect where we're not looking behind us at what our parents and our grandparents may have shared, the wisdom that they had to pass on. And even at the same time, we're not holding on to our cultural traditions so we even have the ability to pass them down. Parents have so become disconnected from truth that they're not teaching their children. And so there is no this reflexive looking back on parents and grandparents that held wisdom, because the wisdom that they have is baseless. And I think that that's more what's being explored here. The author here tells us that wisdom is loud and obvious. I think a lot about this when people want to go for a diagnosis instead of just looking at what is obvious, what seems really easy to understand, and go after the simple before heading in and getting somebody to dig deep into microscopes and blood samples and to look to find something wrong. We avoid what is loud and obvious. What is loud and obvious is if we follow God's commandments, if we use what's right in front of us that was given to us, it's really simple. That's wisdom. He goes on to talk about, developing this idea that if we treasure God's commandments and make ourselves open to wisdom that comes out of those commandments, it will move our hearts to understanding. And here, this is sort of the crux of the argument, that if we seek knowledge, and maybe as Eve reached out for knowledge, if we seek knowledge for our own ends, or to satisfy our own curiosity, or because of our own purpose, we are going to wind up in a bad place. We need to listen to those that come before us. We need to be listening to God's commandments that are passed down. And that's how we receive wisdom. And that's how our hearts are moved to understanding, which the argument here is that understanding is the true treasure. The upright will live in the land, blameless will remain, and the wicked will be cut off. Don't run with a bad crowd. Do what's right. Bind kindness in chapter 3 here. Bind kindness and truth around your neck. Write them on your heart. Trust in the Lord your God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So again, this piecing out of wisdom that comes from within us or comes from human desire, understanding that comes out of our own brains and our own motivation, as opposed to where wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is properly derived from, which is, going back to the first line, the fear of the Lord. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. And here is a really important piece of this. It will be healing to your body and refreshment to your bones. The profit and gain of understanding is better than silver and gold. He refers to understanding as a she. She is more precious than jewels. There is nothing you could desire that is greater than this understanding. And again, the understanding is coming through knowledge that becomes wisdom, that becomes understanding, and it originates in a fear of God and in following all the commandments. And this is how we get to understanding. And this is at the end of these passages, the author points to us and says, understanding is a tree of life. So it puts me back in the garden where I'm standing between two trees and I have a choice. I can choose the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is going to be me reaching out for knowledge that will satisfy my own desires, that will satisfy my own curiosities, my own ends. Or I can eat from the tree of life, which in this argument as he has built it, the tree of life here is understanding that derives from wisdom, that derives from knowledge, that comes from the fear of God and following all of his commandments. The idea that this is the path to healing, that this is the path towards a lack of stress, a refreshment in our bones, peace in our bodies, how much more simple can it be? And I go back again to the statement that wisdom is loud and obvious. We don't need to dig and dig for the thing that's buried because we're oh so smart and we can figure things out and we can glorify ourselves because we've managed to take things apart enough to find the answer. God's answers are loud and obvious. And we can stop there simply by deriving true wisdom and understanding and following his commandments, and thereby heal our bodies. Very cool passages. I pray that God is blessing you today and that he brings you back to study with me again on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.